Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're looking at NIO. Could NIO be worth more than Tesla by 2050? So recently, NIO's stock prices dropped below the IPO price. Investors are worried about it slowing down growth and shrinking margins. NIO lacked Tesla early advantage, but it could keep expanding. These are some key points that we've got from the Montefiore website. Some of these remarks might be considered a little bit too much, a little bit too outlandish, ridiculous. But I wanted to give my own explanation on why I think it is not out of the question to think that NIO could be worth more than Tesla in the near future or in the long-term future. These are two companies that are doing something very similar, but in slightly different ways. So let's just backtrack for a moment. When the Chinese electric vehicle maker NIO went public in September 2018, it seemed like an interesting alternative to investing in Tesla. NIO was growing rapidly and stood out from the competition because it used swappable batteries, which could be quickly replaced across its network of battery stations instead of traditional charging. Try to keep in mind that NIO vehicles do give you the option of charging or swapping out your battery, which I think is fundamentally genius. Prior to its public debut, NIO turned a lot of heads with the introduction of its high-end EP9 supercar in 2016. That vehicle was never mass-produced, but it generated a lot of buzz for NIO brand before it rolled out the first commercial vehicle following the year. Today, NIO produces a wide range of electric sedans and SUVs. And I think most of us can arguably agree that the SUV segments are significantly more successful for NIO and for other brands as well, similar like Tesla. The Tesla Model Y is Tesla's best-selling vehicles. Now, if you look back 5, 6, 7 years ago, you would not have thought the Model Y would be Tesla's best-selling vehicle. Most people would consider that the Model 3 would have been the best-selling vehicle. But the market is changing. People are really starting to adapt to SUVs. Big SUVs, mid-size SUVs, and small SUVs. And the Tesla Model Y is like a crossover. It's like a small SUV. Now, NIO went public at $6.28 per American deposit share. Stock skyrocketed to a record high of $62.84 on February the 9th, 2021. Now, this was during the period where electric vehicle stocks were going through the roof, including Tesla, of course. This was during that time when it felt like there was a new EV that was going IPO, or they were going through a SPAC merger, like every other week. It felt really out of this world. So at the peak, NIO enterprise value reached $91 billion, or 16 times its revenue would generate in 2021. But today, NIO traded around $5 with an enterprise value of less than $10 billion. NIO's stock ran out of juice as its delivery slowed down, competition squeezed its margin, and it racked up steep losses. Rising interest rates and simmering tensions between the US and China made the company's stock even less appealing. But over the long term, NIO could bounce back and become even more valuable than Tesla by 2050. But why is this? Why would they publish an article saying something like this? Is it even realistic? By 2050. 2050 is still a good distance away. Try to understand that is still like 26 years away. Understandably, a lot of things could happen in that time period. It might not even be NIO or Tesla. There might be another company who takes the crown. Maybe it's Rivian. At this point, we really don't know. 26 years is such a long way. But I guarantee you, we will look back at that and we will wonder, wow, what has changed? So from 2019 to 2023, NIO deliveries increased at compound annual rate of 67%. However, its growth decelerated significantly over the past 2 years. Do not be surprised at that. There is Tesla, NIO, all of these electric vehicle brands, they're raging war against each other. Price competitive war. Now, this slowdown was caused by supply chain constraints, the sluggish Chinese economy, and the fierce competition across the EV market. The ongoing price war slashed its vehicle margins from 20.1% in 2021 to 9.5% in 2023. But on the bright side, NIO deliveries accelerated in the second half of 2023 as the vehicle's margin expanded sequentially for 3 successive quarters. Its year-over-year growth in monthly deliveries also sped up in March and April. Now, to be honest, I've spoken about some of this in one of my most recent videos. I've explained it in depth, essentially. Essentially, I'm looking at NIO delivering over 210,000 vehicles minimum in 2024. Minimum. So this could be anywhere from 210,000 to 250 or 240,000 vehicles delivered this year. 250,000 vehicles delivered this year for NIO. That's my estimate. So why do I believe this is possible? Why do I believe this is possible? It's a very good question, and it's fairly simple. This is just a look at some of NIO's deliveries as per this month. The darker colors are for the monthly deliveries in 2024. In May, over 20,544. In April, over 15,620. In March, almost 12,000. In February, 8,000. January, 10,000 plus. So essentially in Q1, they delivered over 30,000. And in April and May, so far, they delivered over 35,000. So I'm guessing in June, we're looking at another 20,000 to 25,000. Overall, that'd be 60,000 roughly being delivered in Q2. If they can maintain this throughout the rest of the year, yeah, Q3, another 60,000 plus, Q4, another 60,000 plus, minimum, you're looking at 210,000 vehicles. So that, in my opinion, is quite extraordinary. But we always have to keep in mind, these companies, they're at very different stages within their development. Tesla does have a huge amount of advantage worldwide, and they have a huge amount of advantage in infrastructure-wise, which is why their deliveries are so amazing, which is why the money that they're making, the revenues that they're making per segment is so incredible because they've optimized over and over again for efficiency. They've had the time to do that, to perfect their craft. NIO, on the other hand, they're still struggling, and it's not a surprise. You know, Tesla was here. Tesla was here back in 2014, 15, 16. Yeah, probably 14 and 15. Tesla was right here as well, so do not be surprised. If anything, I'd say in China, NIO is extremely advanced with their charging station, swappable stations, with their infrastructure and their popularity in selling vehicles. They're doing incredibly well in their home market in China. Now, they're looking to advance into the European region. But of course, with the price tariffs that is happening right now, this is getting out of hand. It's getting messy. It's not going to benefit foreign company, and it's not going to benefit native company either. It's going to have an effect on both because, yes, European states can impose tariffs, but so can China. China can do the same to French brands, Italian brands. They can do the same to British brands, to German brands, to American brands. They can do the same. They can impose tariffs as well. But something that I'll always keep in mind is just how welcoming China was to Tesla. They welcomed Tesla with open arms. And sadly, you do not see the same thing with Europe and America. They're not welcoming Chinese brands with open arms. Not even close. And if I'm being completely honest, most of these states, they're really afraid of what's possible with Chinese brands such as NIO. NIO just launched its Tesla Model Y competitor, a $30,000 L60 Envoo EV, kicking off cheaper Envoo brand. And NIO has another brand that they'll be launching soon, codename Firefly, but this will undoubtedly be changed officially when it's released. And what this car reminds me of is the Polestar 4, of course. I've said it quite a few times. It's not a bad thing, it's competition. But what's really incredible is how they shocked the market with this vehicle, and they're like, actually, we have cheaper models that are still in the pipeline that we're working on. And to European brands, to American brands, this is scary because Chinese electric vehicles are super advanced. They're leading the way in electrification. And knowing their competitive nature, this won't go down very well. I think BYD is working on a factory in Mexico, so how long will it take before other Chinese brands start building factories in Mexico and Europe as well to avoid these tariff problems? It's probably the most efficient way to avoid the tariff problems. And Volvo's recently done something similar. Volvo's recently moved the EX30 and EX90 production from China to Belgium. That's now their full-time plan, to move production. And while it might not be ideal for Volvo to do this, they understand that with the amount of tariffs that are coming in, it is better to solve this problem now than to wait until it gets too worse when you have no solution. So despite all of this, like I said, they delivered 20,000 vehicles in May alone. So NIO sees EV sales surge amidst price war. Yeah, so despite everything, NIO is actually still expanding. And like I said, I'm looking at them delivering over 250,000 vehicles this year, 2024. And their rollout in Europe is still quite slow. So they're not even in Europe fully yet. They're not fully integrated into European region. Imagine when they are. And these NIO vehicles, there's an appeal to them for sure. Once you've sat into it, I'm sorry, you're sold. Once I sat in the NIO ET5, I was sold. No questions about it. It is simple, elegant. It's elegant, and it's got a fine touch. So NIO said it expects deliveries to hit record figures for April to June quarter after introducing buyer incentive amidst a bruising price war in the country. The Shanghai-based firm said its earnings report that the second quarter deliveries could reach 54 to 56,000 units, up 79.7% to 86.3% from the previous year. So I'm quite close. I said 60,000 for Q2. They're saying 54 to 56,000. They're being optimistic. I'm being super optimistic. So I'm actually not too far off. Like 5,000 in difference. Yeah, I'm not too far off at all. So now it doesn't sound so crazy when I say that they could deliver 250,000 vehicles this year, does it? It doesn't sound crazy. This is a company that's not delivering in America yet. Not South America, not North America. They're barely delivering in Europe because they're still building out that infrastructure. But here's what's genius about NIO. They're building a family of brands. Not just NIO, but Onvu, Firefly. Economically, it's going to work really well for them if they have a family of brands to offer prices of vehicles in all different price segments. You want a 30 grand car? You got it. You want a 35 grand car? You got it. You want a 45 grand car? You got it. You want a $90,000 car? You got it. You want an $80,000, $70,000, $60,000? You've got it. Whatever you want, NIO wants to supply it to you. And the incredible thing about having a family brand is that it can integrate into your ecosystem. What is NIO ecosystem? The charging stations. The swappable stations are the most important, if I'm being completely honest. Those things will revolutionize the way of how we charge our vehicles. It's not charging anymore, it's just swapping. Swap and go. Try to keep in mind, in the third quarter of 2023, NIO had a record of 55,432 deliveries in the third quarter of 2023. So they've hit over 55,000 deliveries before, and that was last year in Q3. So it's not out of the question for them to do it again this year. And if they do it again this year, understand, it is 1 quarter early. Last year, it was Q3. This year, it could be Q2. So what we're seeing is, yes, they're optimizing for efficiency. They're finding ways to deliver less vehicles and to make more money. But even more incredible, they're finding an ingenious way to not just increase the delivery numbers quarter over quarter, year over year, but also in an early attempt. They're not going to wait for Q3 this year to deliver 55,000 vehicles. No, they're like, yeah, we can do this in Q2. And I'm still bullish. I still want them to hit 60,000 vehicles in Q2. But maybe that's for Q3. But either way, it's quite exciting. But if 55,000 that they did in Q3 last year, what could they do this year in Q3? Could it be over 60,000, like 65,000, 70,000? And this is what I mean. It will quickly turn into something that we could never expect. NIO will quickly turn into something wonderful. It already is. Now, the firm posted a net loss of $715.6 million in the first quarter, worse than analysts had expected as revenue plunged 42.1% from the previous quarter to 9.9 billion won. Deliveries for the first quarter of 30,000 vehicles were down 40% quarter over quarter as the competitor introduced steep price cut. They didn't explain that very well. When they say quarter over quarter, they're comparing Q4 last year to Q1 this year. And I always tell you that's unrealistic. Why is it unrealistic? Well, let's look at Tesla's Q4 last year in revenue, 25 billion. This year in Q1, 21 billion. They're down. They're down, and they're down by a lot. So is that a bad thing? No, it's not. In Q1, companies always have a slow start. Tesla had it last year as well. Q4 2022, 24 billion in revenue. Q1 2023, 23.3 billion. They were down once again. The first quarter of the year is always a slow start. They build up gradually throughout the year. So when articles try to mislead people, I don't like it. They also try to mislead people with the net loss as well. It looks like they've tweaked the figures to make it look the way it has. But based on my analysis that I've made in previous videos, when NIO delivered less vehicles in Q1, they actually made more in profit. So this is some information on that. Yes, in Q1, 30,000 vehicles, right? Revenue generated for sales amount to 1.16 billion, down 13.4% year over year. Okay, they delivered less vehicles, so they had less in revenue. But for some reason, they had a gross profit that came in at 67.6 million. That's up 186.4% year over year. So the profit is up, the revenue is down. Does that make any sense? It makes sense to me because what it says is that they're delivering less vehicles, but they're making more money. There's only one way you can work some magic like that. It is called optimizing for efficiency. And that's what NIO has done. That's what Tesla started doing years ago. And it's worked pretty well for Tesla, obviously. It is what Rivian is doing right now. It is what Polestar wants to do, Volvo wants to do. A lot of EV brands are going extremely hard on optimizing for efficiency because they can see sometimes you can deliver less vehicles and make more money and profit. And that's the beauty of understanding this business extremely well. And it's taken Tesla years, if not over a decade, to master this quality of optimizing for efficiency. Now, apparently there's also some battery swap incentive. NIO introduced incentive into the second quarter, including 12 months of rent-free use of its battery swap program, which allows users to access automated service points where you spend a unit, it is removed from the bottom of the vehicle and replaced with a fully charged one. As a result of the company, which has dual listing in Hong Kong and New York, said it saw high levels in deliveries in May. Yes, extremely high, over 20,000. BYD, the country's biggest EV maker and second biggest global after Tesla, launched the latest round of price competition with steep cuts in February. Price of 50 models across various brands have dropped by an average of 10% since then. Like other EV makers, NIO is introducing additional brands at lower price to drive increased sales. In May, launching its mid-range Onvu brand and planning on even more affordable brands called Firefly in the first half of next year. So I'm not going to go into the details on Onvu. We already went through it on multiple other videos. So if you'd like to check out those videos, we have NIO's the next VW, NIO Stations is genius. Got some of these great videos that I've invested some really key time in exploring the qualities that make NIO special and looking at the Onvu brand as well. Check out these videos to learn some more about what I've spoken about. Big thank you to everyone for helping this channel achieve over 3,000 subscribers, 756 videos. This one counting 757 videos. Thank you to everyone. Subscribe to see more. Leave a like, leave a comment. Subscribe to our newsletter as well. There's a link in the description. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.